Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about which type of weed whacker you should get. Alright, so you're in the market for a new weed whacker. The big question is, should you get a gas-powered one or should you get an electric-powered one? So today we're going to do a quick overview of the pros and cons of each. And the reason that I show these two is that I have owned both of these two and I have killed both of these two. So this is the predicament that I recently had. And having gone through the full life cycle with one of each of these, I not only know how they perform new, but also when they're not as new and the maintenance involved long-term. So with that, let's start with the electric unit. Some of the pros and cons of this. Now this one has a rechargeable battery built in. It has a charging unit that installs in the wall. You hang it up and it charges like that. And some of the newer units have a removable battery, such as like a drill would have. Right off the bat, from a weight perspective, lifting up this one and then the gas one. The gas one is a little bit heavier. However, that's going to depend specifically on the individual model you get, but I would generally argue that the electric ones are a little bit lighter. Now the reason for that is they're also a little bit lighter duty. They don't necessarily have as much cutting force. But there are some pros to them as well, okay? Number one is simplicity. There is no real movable engine components in here other than the electric motor, which is very simple. So other than making sure your battery doesn't die, there's not really a whole lot of maintenance involved. Keep the battery somewhere where it doesn't get extremely hot or extremely cold, because long term, that will kill your battery life. So for example, I live in New Hampshire. It gets very cold here in the winters. Just take this into your house or in the basement even over the course of the winter so it's not experiencing negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and instead it only goes down to, 40 degrees Fahrenheit. But like I said, the trade-off is a lot less maintenance. There's no tinkering with this in the spring. It's ready to go every time you pull it off the wall as long as that battery is charged. But the downside of it being battery powered, especially like this one where the battery is internal, is as it ages, as that battery starts to lose its capacity, the unit does have less power and it holds its charge for less time later on in its lifespan. How long that's going to last for you depends on a number of factors. How often do you use it? How hard do you push the unit? What are your charging habits with it, and how do you store it? Having a battery that removes gets rid of a lot of that concern because you can just swap out that battery, but let's be real, those rechargeable batteries are very expensive and you're not really going to want to replace that unless you absolutely need to. So for example, a Milwaukee rechargeable battery is somewhere between $90 and $150 depending on the season and how short supply they have. The reality is you can go out and buy a new gas-powered weed whacker for the price of a battery depending on which brand you go with. But that's a serious problem I experienced with this unit. As it got older, it no longer wanted to do some serious cutting. So if I had a large patch of tall grass, I couldn't just throw this in the center and hack everything away. I had to take away only like an inch or two at a time at the very end and slowly work my way in, and that very quickly killed off this battery. Even just doing routine maintenance on my property is like 0.15 acres and my house takes up most of that. Even so, when I was using this unit, especially towards the end of its life, I would have to go out, trim up the back part of my yard, put it back on the charger, then go mow the rest of everything, and then come back out and hope that this had enough juice to do the front half as well. There were times, especially in the fall where it was colder, where I had to leave this for a few hours and then go finish up the rest of the yard a couple hours later. Obviously, that's not ideal. I don't want to sit around covered in grass remnants because this thing has to charge and it doesn't make sense to shower if I have to go back out and do this again. Now, granted, battery technology now is a lot better than when I first got this unit, and I think newer batteries hold up a lot better to the frequent use and abuse. But that is still a long-term concern. Even on the drills and the saws and the other tools that I have purchased that are all battery powered, doesn't matter which brand I've used, after about 2 years, there's a noticeable drop in power and a noticeable drop in battery life. That is a reality of having a battery powered tool. But beyond the benefits of not having to tinker with it to get it to run every year, you also don't have to worry about physically pouring fuel into it. You don't have to keep fuel on hand. You just plug it in and it's pretty much done. The other thing is when these are running, they're a lot more quiet than a gas-powered weed whacker. You could feasibly use this without any sort of hearing protection, or if you work an off shift or you have to mow at a weird hour for some reason, you're not gonna disturb your neighbors as much using something like this. So if you like to get up at 6:30 in the morning and use these, I would recommend using one of these so that your house doesn't get egged. And one of the final reasons someone might get an electric unit instead of a gas-powered unit is for emissions, for environmental protection and keeping the emissions down and not contributing to to global warming. Now, towards the end of the video, I'll discuss this in more detail, but it's a little bit of a moot point, and I wouldn't have that be your primary consideration when buying this, because ultimately, this is a tool that's got to get used for a job, and if it doesn't do the job you need it to do, then it's not really useful, and you're going to have to throw it out, spend more money, and buy another one. And the process of getting rid of this and discarding of the batteries and having all those materials go back into the earth, not exactly insignificant. And finally, price. Now, price is going to vary a lot depending on the specs of the unit you actually get, depending on the brand, and depending on a number of features. But here on the screen, I'll put the price of a very entry-level one versus a more mid-range or a higher-end one, just to give you an idea of the range that you can spend on an electric unit. And now for the gas-powered unit. This is already substantially heavier. I can already feel that weight. Normally, I would only use this with some sort of a shoulder sling just to reduce the strain on your arms and give you better control. These are not as lightweight, but they also typically have a longer neck, so you get a little bit more reach. Now, personally, being taller, that means I don't have to hunch over and squat when I'm doing my whole yard. I find that easier, but the increased strain, especially if you're a smaller person, might not be something that you're willing or able to deal with. But as for how this compares to an electric unit, this has a lot more power. It takes down a lot more things that are a lot thicker, a lot quicker. The reality is that this motor is just simply put more powerful because the fuel that it's using is more potent than just a battery. Beyond that, if you maintain this with any degree of consistency at all, you're not going to lose power over time. And as far as engines go, this is the simplest one you can pretty much maintain. Here's your fuel tank. You have 2 lines. It goes to your carburetor, which comes off with 2 screws. You can buy a new one on Amazon for about $12. Normally, there is a single spark plug right there. It's removed on this one. But the reality is 99% of the time, you put fuel in here, you prime it with this button, you pull this, and it starts. As long as you have good fresh fuel and you're using this routinely, this is going to be a good, solid, reliable unit. Now, the reason this one in particular died was it sat unused for about 5 to 7 years in a pretty humid and harsh environment. Over that time, some rust and gunk built up inside of the engine. That is what eventually caused this to die. So it's not even that this died just because it ran the course of its life, it died because of neglect and disuse. But if you're using it routinely, if you're going out on a weekly or every other week basis to do your yard, you're probably not going to have that issue. And it never really required any major maintenance until it sat for a prolonged period of time. Now, the cons are almost the exact opposite of the electric unit. It's not as convenient. You have to pour fuel into it. It's a little bit messier because it is an actual motor. If you spill the fuel, that is smelly. If you get the air intake gunked up, you gotta replace that. And it's all cheap stuff, but it is a little bit of tinkering here and there. But in return, you get a much more powerful engine that takes down a lot more stuff a lot faster, but almost to the point that it's concerning. I never really needed hearing protection for the electric unit. I almost always need it with this unless I want a sweet buzzing headache afterwards. The other thing that I absolutely need with this that I never needed with the electric unit is eye protection, because this has so much power. It's not only going to cleave through whatever you're trimming, it's also going to absolutely send it flying. If you have shorts on while using one of these units, it will kick grass and weeds at your legs so fast that it might actually cause you to bleed. I've also had one launch a rock directly off my face at high velocity. Now, fortunately, I was wearing safety glasses, and I would never use one of these without safety glasses because of how powerful they are. Honestly, for the most part, I didn't wear safety glasses with the electric unit. It just didn't have enough power to create the sort of velocity that this thing does. So it's heavier, it is a lot louder, but it is a lot more powerful. Now, the other good thing, though, is it has less downtime if you're doing a larger property. Like I said with the electric unit, by the end of its lifespan, I didn't have enough juice to do my front and backyard, which are very small, on a single charge. A unit like this with only a part tank of gas will easily do the whole front, the whole back, and then have room to spare. But let's say hypothetically that you have a larger property. Maybe you have an acre, maybe you have 10 acres that you're trying to maintain. If you have an electric unit, even with batteries that can be swapped out, the problem is once you run out of batteries, you have to recharge them before the unit is up and running again. The amount of charge time that you have varies based on manufacturer, based on battery capacity, a couple other things, but on something like this, you just put more fuel in the tank, you rip-start it again, and you're back up and running within moments. Especially on a larger property or somewhere where you're doing larger stints of work in a single time and you need the unit to run for a longer consecutive amount of time, there really is not a replacement for a gas unit. Which is probably a big part of the reason that I've never once seen a professional landscape company use anything other than a gas-powered unit. And if it's good enough for the professionals who are doing this all day, every day, day in and day out, and they need that constant reliability and low running costs long term, then it's probably good enough for you as a homeowner or someone who's doing this on occasion on the side. So the reality is this is a little bit dirtier. It's got a little bit more maintenance involved with it, but in return for that, you get a lot more power, you get less downtime, and the time that you might spend maintaining it is easily made up for by the time you're not waiting around for it to charge. Now, perhaps the only exception to that is if you physically run out of fuel to refuel this, then you have to go out to the store and buy more. But if you plan ahead and you know you're running out, just pick it up ahead of time. It's really not that difficult, and it'll save you all that downtime. Another consideration is that these also have the ability to add different attachments. Now, some of the higher end or mid-tier electric ones do as well, but again, you don't necessarily have enough power with an electric one to run all of the attachments that you might necessarily want long term. But with a gas unit, even with the most power-hungry attachments in the roughest environment that I could personally find nearby, I could not find a situation where power was a limiting factor or a problem that prevented that from running. I have used electric units with attachments. There were some times that it bogged down or it killed the battery, I would say unreasonably fast, just because of how much load you were putting it under. Again, in those situations where you're overloading it, you're killing the power source quickly, being able to refuel is very essential. And with that, here are two final considerations. Number one is longevity of the unit. I think the gas unit, if you're using it regularly, is going to last a lot longer than the electric units. This is also something you're seeing on electric cars. The bulk of those came out in the early 2010s. At about the 10-year time frame, those batteries either need replacement or major servicing and overhauls to get them back to a strong functioning state. The reality is, on these electric units, no matter how well you maintain them, you have to replace the batteries at a certain interval, at which point you're better off just almost buying a new unit that has the batteries included. Which means for an electric unit, I would expect to get between 7 and 12 years of usable life before you have to get another one. By comparison, the gas unit, at the 10 to 12 year mark, this one was still running pretty strong, but it did need a couple parts. You can actually clean the carburetors out, but you could just buy a brand new carburetor for about $12 and it's 2 bolts to replace. Not only are the replacement parts inexpensive, but there's a lot of information out there, especially on YouTube, that tells you how to do all the services you'll ever need and how to replace these simple parts. It's a great way to learn, it's a great way to figure out how your equipment works, and to let you know how to best maintain it so that it's going to last long term. And if you do that, and if you do that properly, these can actually last you pretty much your entire lifetime. This unit here, for example, I believe was made in the mid-1990s. It got almost 20 years of use before it was put away in a shed, and that is what eventually killed it. I'm fairly confident that if this had remained in use during that time frame, it would probably still be running today. And as for price point, this is the entry-level price point of one of these units, and then here's more of like a mid-range to higher end, just to give you an idea of the spread. I think you feel the running cost a little bit more in the sense that you have to go out and buy the fuel, you're putting it directly onto a credit card or paying in cash. But to be fair, the electric unit isn't free to run, you're still paying for it, you're just paying for it through your electric bill, so you don't know which part of that is segregated to only that unit. So with that said, let's talk about what is probably one of the biggest downsides, or at least perceived downsides, of the gas unit, and that is emissions. This unit is obviously a running engine, and most small engines, this one included, do not have emissions equipment, so the emissions relative to the amount of fuel consumed are relatively high. There's nothing to really process or to filter out any of those contaminants that are going into the environment. So if you're very environmentally concerned, your first instinct might be to not get one of these because of the emissions that come out of it. But what you also have to consider is you're not running this thing 24/7, you're running it for maybe an hour or so at a time every 1 to 2 weeks for most people. And beyond that, the gas unit, because it's more powerful, because it's running at a higher operating speed, you're going to get the same job done faster, which saves you time, but it also means that the unit is running for less time, thereby producing less emissions than if you ran it for a longer stint of time. So does it have emissions? Yes. Are you really producing so much from your one weed whacker that you need to be concerned on a global scale? Not necessarily. I think there's a lot of other things you could do in your life that would easily offset the carbon footprint that something like this would have. Furthermore, that concern implies that the alternative is completely emissions free, which is not really the case. You have to look at these things in a cradle to grave perspective, which is the total lifespan, from the process of getting the raw materials all the way through the disposal when you get rid of the unit. The reality is these gas-powered units, they've been making these for decades and decades, and they have the manufacturing processes down to a very efficient standpoint. And And they at this point have probably produced hundreds of thousands of these. They've made so many of these that the tooling is already made. They don't have to constantly make new tooling. And most of the materials are metal or plastic, which are already recycled or new ones mined or created, but in a way that's so efficient and has so little scrap and leftover material that that's how they're able to produce such cheap parts for these. And while that's true for most of the electric unit and most of the components within it, the problem lies in the battery, which is the core of its power source and kind of the essential component to the whole thing. The process for mining batteries, for transporting the materials, for refining it, and then making it into the battery and transporting it to its final destination is a very high polluting and very high carbon footprint endeavor. And then the reality is, even the recharging is not done with clean energy in most places. If you have solar panels on your house and you're getting real clean electric directly from the source, yeah, in that case, the recharging is pretty much carbon free. But especially for most of us here in the US who get our power from the grid, it's usually a coal plant or some sort of a fuel burning plant, which is not necessarily the most environmentally friendly. So even your recharging process isn't necessarily carbon neutral. And just like with the gas unit, right? You're not running this thing 24/7. It's not being charged 100% of the time, but to try to say that the gas unit is a heavy polluter while the electric unit is completely pollution free, it's not really a fair statement unless you're directly mining the materials yourself and then recharging it with something like a solar panel in a way that you know is carbon neutral. Then on the grave side of it, the disposal after the usable life. Like I said, the electric unit probably has about half the usable life compared to a well-maintained gas unit, which means long-term you'll use twice as many electric units as a well-maintained gas equivalent. Or worded differently, you'll have to throw out 2 of these every time that you kill off one of these. And the process for getting rid of the batteries is currently not well developed, which is why AutoZone was caught throwing old car batteries into international waters directly into the ocean. Now, I'm picking on AutoZone because they're the ones who got caught, but the reality is they're probably not the only ones doing this or who will do this in the future. And putting something like a battery into the ocean, I would argue, is a lot worse than recycling the majority of a gas-powered engine. It's almost impossible to get exact pollution figures for not only the running gas unit, but also for the electric unit, for the mining processes and the creation of the batteries, for the higher pollution transportation because batteries have special handling requirements, for the disposal of the battery afterwards, and for the pollution coming from the power plant that gives you the electricity for it. So I can't sit here and give you an exact figure for how one compares to the other, both near term and long term, but what I can say is that neither is perfect from that perspective. So I wouldn't use environmental concerns as your primary reason for getting one or the other. The reality is they both have an environmental impact, so if that is your primary concern, go buy a pair of scissors and start cutting things by hand. But for the rest of us who don't want to do that, this is ultimately the machine of convenience, whereas this is ultimately the stronger and I would say better tool for the job long term. So you can probably guess which one I chose as my replacement, but in case you haven't figured it out, and as you can probably tell, I have very thoroughly used this already, and so far, I don't have a single regret about the purchase I've made. Hopefully you got some good information out of this, but I want to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.